Hey everyone, I just want to do a quick review of our circles, and we're going to find the area of circles and calculate some other parts of a circle. So really quickly, I got a picture of a circle here. I just want to really make sure everybody can remember that we call that line our radius. Whoops. We call this line our radius, and we call a line that starts in or runs through the middle our diameter all the way across. It is really important we remember those two words because we will have this idea of connection between them. The other thing that is really important for us to see is that if we're looking at a circle and if we have a radius, and a radius, the definition is basically it starts in the center and hits the edge of the circle. So a line that basically is halfway across your circle is your radius. The diameter is made up of two radius. So if I draw another radius there, this is also a radius. It started in the center and it went to the edge. All together, we call this a diameter. Now I just wanted to make sure I made that clear because you will see two radiuses is equal to one diameter. And this idea basically says 2 times an r for a radius is equal to a d for diameter. And I really wanted you to understand that because now if I give you a radius, I can ask you for things like, well, calculate the diameter. Or if I give you a diameter, I can ask you for the radius. Because if this statement is true, 2 radiuses will be a diameter, then if I take half of a diameter, I will get a radius. So this statement becomes true as well. And those two ideas are really important, kind of how they're connected. So diameter, a radius is half of a diameter, or a diameter is made up of 2 radii, or a radius and another radius. So hopefully that sort of makes sense how we have these connections. Radius, center to the out, half of a line across a circle essentially. Pass starts in the middle. So we have that general idea in terms of our radius and our diameter. And using that information, we also have one other piece that I want to talk about within a circle, and that is the outside of the circle, which we call the circumference. And I know my writing is not so good. The circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle. So in other words, start at one point and I go around that circle. If I had a piece of rope, I could basically set it down and make a circle out of that rope. If I measured the length of that rope, we would call that the circumference of our circle. Circumference has another formula. So far we got 2 formulas. We have one more. Well, we're going to have another one after this one too. But we have another one which is pi times diameter. So to find the circumference, I can multiply my diameter by the variable pi, or the symbol pi. And pi, basically, we're going to look at pi as being 3.14. So I can ask you guys to calculate things like circumference. I can ask you guys to calculate things like a radius from a diameter. I could also give you a radius and ask you to calculate the diameter. So there's lots of information that I can ask for from these 3 things. I want to look at one more thing because my focus of this lesson was actually on our area. And we talked a little bit about area before the break there. But if we look at a circle and if I give you a measurement starting from the middle and going out, and I say that this measurement, I'm just going to do a no note here for area. This measurement, let's say, is 4 centimeters. From here, you guys can turn around and make some information. You guys can pull some pieces of information from here and get some ideas. One last formula that we need to know is area is equal to pi r squared. Now we talked about what r squared means before, but really this formula means pi times r again. That's what r squared means. It means it's timesing it by itself. So when I look at this, if I asked you information, I could ask you for the area of this shape. I could also ask you for the diameter. I could also ask you for the circumference. So we're going to calculate all things for this example that I have here. So first off, knowing this formula, I'll just kind of keep this as an aside. So now I want you to, for this shape, I want you to find the diameter. I want you to find the circumference, and I want you to find the area. So I want 3 pieces of information about this circle that we drew. And we're going to figure out those 3 pieces of information by using those different formulas that we talked about. Okay, so those are the pieces of information that I want to get. So I have a circle with a 4. So I'm going to start, first off, I can probably pretty easily, and you guys could probably do this too, we could tell me, we know my radius is equal to 4 centimeters because I have a dot running from the center to the outskirts, and that was 4 centimeters. We know my diameter is then going to be 2 times my radius, which means 2 times 4 centimeters, which is 8 centimeters. Okay, so reviewing all those terms, we remember that a radius is half of a diameter, or a 2 radii make 1 diameter. So that's why I multiplied my radius by 2 to bring it back up so it's 8 centimeters. So in other words, if I was to draw a line all the way across that circle, this would be another 4 centimeters, and in total, that would be 8 centimeters. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to erase those pictures because I want to use this drawing for a couple other things as well. But that's what I want you to understand, is the idea that essentially all of this stuff is sort of connected, radius and diameter. If you know one, you can find all the rest. Okay, so check mark, diameter has been found. Circumference, a little bit harder for me to find, but I know my formula. Circumference is pi times diameter. Okay, so knowing that, I can turn around and look at this and say, well, pi I know. Pi is a memorized value. Just about all of you guys could tell me pi is 3.14. I know that that is now times my diameter. Well, my diameter we measured right here, and we figured out that that was 8 centimeters. So if I take 3.14 and I multiply it by 8, I'll get a value. I'm just going to pull up my calculator to do that. 3.14 times 8, and I get a value of 25.12 centimeters. 25.12 centimeters. So that means if I had a piece of string, I would need it to measure 25.12 centimeters to actually go all the way around this circle that I've drawn. Okay, circumference, done. Last thing I need to do is find the area. And area, again, we know that formula is pi r squared. Again, pi we know, 3.14. R squared means r times r. We set it up here. R times r. So if that means that, then I have to look at this, and I know my 4 is my radius, so I'm going to go 4 centimeters times 4 centimeters. And now I'm just simply going to, again, plug that into my calculator. 3.14 times 4 times 4 equals 50.24. Whoops. 50.24 centimeters squared. So the centimeters squared, again, when we're dealing with area, we move to a centimeters squared terminology. And that just means it's a centimeter by centimeter squared unit. So kind of like when we're looking at a graph paper. Graph paper has a box, that square. We call that a square unit. And whatever the measurement is the unit. So in this case, centimeters squared. So we have seen that we can move from radius to diameter. If we know diameter, we can find circumference. If we know circumference, well, it gives us information about our circle. And if we know radius or diameter, we can actually find the area as well. So I'm going to do one other example. I'm going to do it slightly different because in this time, I'm going to actually draw something like this, and I'm going to give you a different piece of information. So in this case, this distance here, and we'll say that that's running through the center of my circle. That dot's supposed to be on the line. We'll say that's the center of my circle, and we're going to say this distance here is, I'll make it harder, 15 centimeters. So knowing that's 15 centimeters, my hope is that you will be able to look at that, and I could ask you the same questions. Only this time I'll say find the radius. the circumference. The circumference and the area. So those are the things. Well, I'm looking at this, and we said that this was a 1, so it's 15 centimeters. See if I can make that a little bit neater for you guys. That's 15 centimeters. Well, if that's 15 centimeters, I know that this, because it's going all the way across my circle, is my diameter. So I know my diameter is 15 centimeters. That means my radius, we know, is half of a diameter, because diameter runs all the way across, radius only runs halfway across. So I'm taking my 15 and I'm going to divide it by 2. And I get 7.5 centimeters. So I know that the radius is 7.5 centimeters. Well, using that information, I can also know to find my circumference. So there's the first step. I found my radius. Second thing it asked me to do is to find my circumference. Well, I just want to keep one formula. So I'm going to say circumference is pi times diameter, because we memorize that now. 3.14 times my diameter, and my diameter in this case was 15 centimeters. So it's going to give me a bit of a bigger number. Again, going to my calculator to make sure that I get the answer right here. 3.14 times 15, 47.1 centimeters. So all of a sudden now I'm sitting at 47.1 centimeters. Just trying to make it a little neater. Okay, so figured out how to find the circumference. That's done. Now I just got to look at it and figure out what it is that they want me to find now, which is, in this case, they also asked me to find area. I'm trying to pinch my screen. It's not working very well. Okay, so using this third step then, I'm looking for area. Again, we know area is pi r squared. So it's just a matter of practicing. Well, pi, 3.14. Radius squared means radius times radius. So in this case, I have to look for my radius, which we solved up here to be 7.5. 7.5 centimeters. And I have to times it by 7.5 centimeters again, because radius was squared. It's really important to know what that squared symbol means. Okay. Now it's just simply a matter of plugging it in. Area becomes, again, you pull out your calculator, have your measurements, 3.14, timesing that by 7.5, timesing it by 7.5 again, I get 176.625. 176.625. And again, my units are centimeters squared, because I'm measuring an area. Okay, so for the most part, that's all we're looking at doing, is we're looking at kind of manipulating some circles and moving back and forth. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Okay, thanks guys.